attributed as the burner phones. The number highlighted in dark blue ending in 672, I believe, is the victim's phone.
Could you clarify for us what time frame this specific shot refers to?
Yes. At the top of the map, there is a header, and you can see this time period is starting at 07:56 and ends on 08:40 minutes on the 8th of the 1st, 2009. So roughly about 24 minutes.
What are the findings that you can read from this data?
Right. What we have here, we have one of the burner phones here at 07:56 9861 is connected to a cell site in this area here. And this S&E indicates to me that this mobile was making or receiving a voice call. These call boxes are taken from the original call schedules and placed into a map for ease of use. So these are just an extrapolation of what the call data records contain. It's just to show you that this is an event by that mobile phone connecting to a cell site, and the location at cell site is given to us by the mobile phone network in coordinates, usually latitude and longitude. So they're very precise. So we know exactly where the cell site is located, and we know at 07:56 that this mobile 9861 connected to that cell site. And the same goes for this event for another phone, 9811. That's 0803. And then we can see that by 0818, that mobile phone is now connecting to a cell site down here, which indicates that the user of that mobile phone has travelled from an area in the northwest in a southeasterly direction down towards, not at, but towards this location A. There is then a further event for this mobile ending 9811 connecting to another cell site just a few minutes later, again indicating further travel south towards location A. I'll now move on to the next map, where there is a time period now starts from, again, 07:56 to 08:40 on the 8th of the 1st, 2009. So we have the victim's home address here. And this particular box here, this large box containing multiple entries of call data records for various burner phones. And you can also see now at 0807, there is an event, a voice call from the 9672 mobile, the victim's phone. Now, what this indicates here is that all these phones, all these mobile phones, are all connecting to this cell site that's located here. And what this tells me on this name, this is called DCS2. I'll give it the short version. That suggests to me that that is on sector 2 of this cell site, which would be either pointing in this direction or that direction, so in an easterly or southeasterly direction, and would more likely provide coverage to the victim's home address. So this suggests here that the victim was at his home address, and that these mobile phones ending in various numbers of 9951, 9812, 9831, and 9811 were all operating in the area of the victim's home address.
Could you clarify for us, could you clarify for us whether some of these calls were between the 5 burner phones? Did they call each other?
Yes, they were actually. I did check this before coming on this afternoon. Within the main call data records, I mean, I can show you if you require further detail, that all the burner phones were mainly contacting each other throughout this period. So what we see here is that they're mainly static on this cell site, whether it be on the sector 2 or there's one event here that's sector 1 that's slightly suggesting some sort of slight movement, and a couple of the mobile phones move onto these cell sites, again indicative of some sort of movement in the general area around the victim's home address. So during this period of time, which we got starting here at 0756 and ending at 0840 on this site here, we have these mobiles moving around the area of the victim's home address, whilst the victim is likely at or near his home address at 0807, 0830 and 0831. But moving on to the next map, we then see some movement by, if I just go to the victim's phone first, having been operating down here at 831, there is then movement up this route here, as we can see by the connections to these various cell sites by the victim's phone 9672, 0842 and 0847. So that would suggest that the victim has left his home address and travelled in a northerly direction along this route here. And what we can also see at the same time is some of these burner phones are following a similar route by the very fact that they're connecting cell sites along that same route. Though on this map we only see 3 incidences of the victim's phone, because that is all we have for this time period, which is 0840 to 0854 on the 8th of the 1st. And during that time period, there's obviously more call records from the burner phones because they're actually calling each other. So we have some of these burner phones that have been operating in and around the victim's home address, following a similar path as the victim travels north, and the burner phones then heading in an easterly direction towards the victim's wife's home address at location B. And if I move on to the next slide, we can see this again. We now have the victim's phone starting at 0855 and then at 0912 and 0913, connecting to this site here, which is more than likely a serving site for this location B. And what we can also see is that some of the burner phones have followed that same path. And incidentally, this particular blue phone here is attributed to one of the military personnel. So now, not only have we got burner phones in and around the area of location B, the victim's wife's home address, we've also got a mobile phone that we've been told is attributed to one of the military personnel. So between the period of 0855 and 0920, we now have the victim's phone moving across to his wife's home address, and at the same time being following a similar route some of the burner phones, plus a military personnel phone in the same general area, not necessarily at the wife's home address, but in the same general area. So moving on, we can see for the period between 0920 and 0941 that the victim's phone remains in this area, still using his phone, still likely in the area of his wife's home address, and we still have the majority of the burner phones operating in and around that same address, making lots of calls, mainly to each other. The only burner phone that hasn't moved is this particular one that seems to remain static in the area of the victim's home address, this 9951. So I'll speed through because we can always go back to these if there's any more questions and detail required. So at 0945, we can see now, sorry, I'll start here, 0941, the victim's phone is still on that particular cell site. Then at 0945, it connects to a new cell site over here, suggesting some sort of movement. And then 0949, the victim's phone has moved to this cell site, again, indicative of movement. So we've now got what appears to be the victim moving away from his wife's home address, heading in a westerly direction to this water expanse area, and that there's then similar movement of some of these burner phones, as you can see. Within a short period of time, they're connecting to the same cell site here at 0949 and up to 0952 with the victim's phone. Again, we have a burner phone movement down here at 0952, and similarly, this mobile phone belonging to one of the military personnel has also moved from an area that was up here to an area down here, which corresponds to the movement of the burner phone. Moving on, slightly later in the day now at 0952 to 1002, we can see some more movement from the victim's phone at 0954, 0955. It's now moved in a southerly direction to this area here. And then by 1001, it's gone to an area just southeast of his home address, suggesting again that the victim is travelling in a southerly direction, having previously been over here at his wife's address. And again, as you can see clearly, the burner phones are following in a similar route. Moving on to the next slide, we are now in the period of 1003 to 1014. The victim's phone here at 1005 and 1010, suggesting that the victim may have been stationary here for a few minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, going on the time of 1005 and 1009. Connected to more or less the same site, though different sectors, or maybe stuck in traffic. Again, we can see corresponding movement of the burner phones following a similar path using the same cells in this instance here between 1003 and 1013. And also these cells here which suggest that they're moving around in this general area. And then just going down to the next slide, there are now in a period of between 1016 and 1030.